Hey everyone, welcome. This is, of course, the pack meeting, the top three tiers of my Patreon tiers. There I am being eloquent again. The top three tiers that I offer on Patreon, Feather Wolves, Dragon Foxes, and Doodlebugs, are collectively called the pack. And every 2 months, we have a private gathering. This is it. If you're watching a recording of this on YouTube, you're watching a very short excerpt of it because these events are private. I like to get really technical during the meetings, so I will be teaching a lot of theory. I tend to work on gray paper most of the time, like 98% of the time I work on gray paper for this specific reason, so that I can use my white charcoal and start on a mid-tone, but adding my white highlights. White charcoal on gray paper is very friendly, but it does take a little bit of care to apply. Notice that I'm using it just the same way as I would use a pencil. And in fact, it does come in two forms. It comes in this stick form that you are seeing on the screen right now, and it comes in pencil form, but the material itself is the same. So I use it exactly the same way as I would use a pencil. In a lot of cases, I would actually use a white Prismacolor pencil or a polychromo white pencil, even one of the Black Widows, Snow or Casper, are really good white pencils. But white charcoal is just a tad stronger, which is why I always use it. Color-wise, I'm going to do this entire thing in Black Widows because ultimately Black Widow pencils are my absolute favorite, especially for skin tones. And most of this is going to be skin tones. I'm actually only going to do the close-up portrait with the hair and the ship. For skin tones, I like to start with, of course, my lightest highlights. I just did that with my white charcoal. And then for my first color, I like to use a dark brown, regardless of the skin tone. If any of you have taken my skin tone course on Udemy, which I think most of you here have, you know that regardless of the skin tone, the first color tends to be a middle brown or like a chocolate brown. This color cinnamon is the one that I tend to start with these days. And then from there on, I decide what kind of a skin tone it is. But I need to establish my light areas and my shadows. So I'm working from a reference photo, of course. I have a million reference photo for Captain Jack Sparrows. So the colors of the movie are also very vibrant, and the skin tones are really on the bronze side. So even though he's a really pale dude, his skin is kind of, tanned and weathered and dirty and grimy and all that stuff. And of course, there's the legendary eyeliner. We can't forget that. And I'm going really heavy on this middle brown. Actually, the coloring is like really far away from. I have 3 screens here, and I probably look like a crazy person turning my head left and right. I have the chat here, and I have the chat here, and then I have my coloring, and then the live stream. So please pardon the crazy face. For male faces, for more masculine faces, we want a little bit more definition. We want those lines to be a little bit more rugged. And that's how we get that look across. Notice that I'm still working with that first color. This is a big investment. This cinnamon brown, I'm doing most of my definition with it. In fact, what I like to do on close-up portraits is to make a sepia portrait first with just my brown and white tones, and then add my coloring on top. And notice that I'm adding it to everything. I treated his hair the same way as I'm treating his face and hand. Lisa, I love your highlights on Johnny's face. Thank you. The white really paid off. I'm going to zoom that in for you guys. With just the white highlights on the gray paper, and then our cinnamon color for all the main shading. And now I'm using the color called Leather. It's one of the I call them mustard colors. This is from the skin tone sets. I'm doing most of this in skin tone sets, the Black Widow skin tone sets. And this leather mixed with cinnamon creates the most amazing like olive tan effect. He's a pirate. He's a pirate of the Caribbean. He's on his ship all the time. Like, his face is totally sunburned. So that's the look that I'm going for. I want it to be bronze in color, even though like it's clearly white skin, but I want it to be really like sea blown and tanned and grimy and dirty, but also really attractive and golden or coppery or something like that. That's a really cool combination. If you're going for this kind of a skin tone, this would be the color combination to go for. White charcoal highlights, cinnamon for the shadows, and then leather for blending it. Oh man, those eyes. Yes, the eyes here are the most important thing. Especially the main eye where he's looking at you from the corner of his eye. It kills me. It's amazing. So I'm going to build up a lot of dark tones here around the eyes with my brown colors before I get to the black eyeliner, because of course Captain Jack needs to have his black eyeliner. What about facial hair? Facial hair gradually gets built up along with everything else as if they were shadows. The hairs. I don't know why I just referred to facial hair in plural. So yeah, notice how first of all, I'm working one color at a time. I'm not switching between colors on different parts of the face. I did everything that needs to be done in my brown cinnamon. I did everything that needs to be done in that mustard leather color. And now I'm working with a really dark brown called mud. So this is where the facial hair comes in. I'm adding all of these details to increase the contrast on the face and to bring out the details that are actually dark, like all the areas around his eyes, the pupil of the eye, and the smile marks around his mouth as well. And look, as the shadow trails down to his chin, to his jaw, at the same time, I'm also adding the facial hair with all the same colors. Stick to your sepia tones as if you're creating a portrait in just brown colors. And then we will add different color variation to differentiate between the skin tone and the hair color tone. All right, so notice what I did in the area of the beard where the dreadlocks and the beard kind of come down on the page, and then he has his pistol across his shoulder, and then we have the ship in front of it. Normally, I would trail that down all the way to the bottom of the page in a really dark color, possibly even taking it all the way to black, so that we have that nice just darkness in there to pop the ship to the foreground, making the ship a lighter color. But here, I can't do that because it's the Black Pearl. It needs to have black sails, and I really want it to be obviously a black pirate ship. So I'm actually going to trail those colors into a lighter tone of blue. Jack's face is looking so realistic. Thank you. Am I using black now finally? Okay, here's the trick with black. For those of you who are joining me for the first time for our pack meetings or any kind of a guided coloring, the way that I approach black in any type of coloring is that it's usually one of the last layers that I add to that particular element. So on the face, black is always the absolute last color. Like maybe I'll go over with, like, I'll see that something's missing and I'll add a little shadow here and there. But basically it's done. I have my skin tone done, and I've built up, especially around the eyes. That in this portrait, that's the most important part. It's the pupil of the eye and all of that black eyeliner and makeup around his actual eye. I intentionally built up the area that I knew would ultimately be black. And I built it up with 2 types of brown, a little bit of blue, really dark brown, which is mud. And then on top of all that, I'm adding black. And that allows me to use black very, very lightly to the touch. I have very few rules. I have a lot of guidelines, but I have very few rules. This is one of my rules. Black never goes directly onto the page as far as pencils go. Now, charcoal is a completely different story, but colored pencils, never black on the naked page, always over a layer of color, because it will come out a lot smoother and a lot more realistic with a tone under it. Any tone of any color underneath it. It doesn't matter. It could be red, it can be blue, it can be anything at all, like lavender in this case. But it does need to be, the black does need to go over something. With lavender, it actually worked out really well because now the black has that lavender undertone, which adds to my whole mystical look of the ship that I was going for. I want the ship to look creepy and a little bit foggy, but still obviously pure black, because of course it is the Black Pearl. So I need it to look black. And notice in the beginning, when we started doing the skin, it seemed really high contrast. Actually, let me play it back. Let me play it back to here. Look Look how high contrast that looks, where we just had the brown and the white. The super high contrast. We have this bright, bright brown color and white. And it's like, how will this ever turn into a nice, subtle skin tone? But compare this to the finished product. It's all the same. We didn't take any of the color away. Now his skin looks so pale. Like the same shadow on the nose is still there, but it looked like such a dramatic dark brown shadow. And all of a sudden his nose just looks like it's barely defined by any shadow work at all. That's the play of contrast. This is why you shouldn't be so timid with your colors to begin with. I was very brave with my first brown color, very brave. I added it all over and I added it generously. And it doesn't matter because in the end, we add so many more layers of darker brown, blue, purple, and black that whatever we did to the skin tone in the beginning fades by comparison. So don't be shy with your colors. You will always build up more and you will create that amazing gradient effect. All right, guys, have fun. I'm going to shuffle around here trying to figure the right button to press to end the stream without me looking like, what am I supposed to press here? Which is apparently my new way of ending the show. Bye, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you soon.